All right, welcome everybody to this training. We're going to first start off with a 2-minute mindfulness exercise. I hope nobody falls asleep on here. It's meant to help get us relaxed, focused, and let's enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to this 2-minute meditation. Find a comfortable position and allow. Hi, I'm Rosalie, and welcome to this 2-minute meditation. Find a comfortable position and allow your eyes to blink closed. Now take a deep breath in and let it go with a sigh. And again, deep breath in and sigh it out. Breathing in again. And as you exhale, let go of any worries, any concerns, any niggling thoughts. With every exhale, allowing any tension to melt away from your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. Just for this moment, letting go of any worries, any concerns, knowing that you can always come back and take care of these later. Now settle into this space of ease and comfort, where there's nothing to do except to relax and enjoy this feeling. And it's time now to come fully back into your body, feeling relaxed, serene, and ready for whatever lies ahead. Namaste.
Namaste, everybody. Wouldn't it be different if all classes and all different trainings started off with a mindfulness exercise and meditation? I'd be surprised how different things would actually be. So what are we going to be learning in today's training session for all of you? Again, this is a postgraduate level. Some of you may still be in school, others have already graduated into the professional working place, but this is all about networking, right? Including talking a little bit about LinkedIn, a little bit about small talk in terms of part of networking, and then ending with public speaking. And you may say, Tim, why are we covering so much content? Well, it's because you as members of Elected Society requested these topics, right? I asked everyone's for feedback, and so I tried to pack so much in there as I could. So first, as we're going to start off with the discussion, I'd love to open it up to all of you to, raise your digital hand. We'll share some best practices when it comes to networking. Then I'm going to go into my experience networking. Again, I've been in, the working environment for almost 2 decades now, networking from college, networking from like jobs and businesses. And I'm going to tell you what failed and what actually succeeded. And then what we're going to do is going to be talking, when you start about networking, you're going to have to talk about yourself, and that becomes your brand. So we're going to go over practicing developing your elevator pitch on how would you introduce yourself? What would the thing
In progress.
those that are very important to actually help you when you're actually networking and talking with people. We'll talk about small talk, about how to actually up your game in terms of engaging with people, strangers, becoming friends. Then we're going to do an exercise. Part of that building those relationships is telling stories. So I want you to brainstorm some stories of your lives, things that you could actually share with people. And then we're going to be talking about 4 tips to be telling better stories. How many times have you heard someone share a story and you're like, boring? Well, we're going to actually talk about those things so that even if you think you're like, no one's going to care or want to listen to me, well, we're going to make you much more exciting, much more attractive, much more engaging. And then we're going to teach you how to actually start taking action now towards networking with people. It's like, well, how do you start networking with strangers that you've never met or never talked to? I'm going to teach you how. And then we're going to go over LinkedIn, some best practices practices. Some of you may be applying for jobs or applied jobs already. I'm going to share with you my experience and how I've used LinkedIn to actually get better traction with connecting with employers. And then finally, we'll end with a discussion about public speaking. Again, I'm going to pick all of your brains on what you want to share, and then I'll share you my 6 tips on what helped me become a better public speaker. All right. So let's jump into the discussion. What are, from you guys as members of Elective Society, some of your best practices for networking? So if you could just raise your digital hand and I'll call upon you, and then you can unmute your microphone. So who would like to go first? Don't be shy. I like to hear your experiences, whether it was you networking in a club, networking at a different organizations. Even if you don't have best practices, what were some of the worst experiences when some people try to network it with you? I love to hear it. So who would like to share? Maddie, thank you. First volunteer, you get an A+ already. Okay, so unmute your microphone and please share with me what your tips are or what you want to share.
So what has worked with me over the years is, introducing yourself, like saying your name, like if it's in a college setting, your major usually. And I think the most meaningful experiences I've ever had in like a networking setting was, asking those things and then asking about them first, like putting the attention on them, because then, you've caught their attention, you've made them feel important. So then they actually want to like listen and know you because you've already like told them that you care about what they are and what they do.
I love that. So you're starting off with the easy one, like, hey, what's your major, your school? But then you're like, tell me more about you. And so you're curious and you're asking them almost like a reporter all these questions, but in a nice, friendly way. And then once they're done, yes, then you can share. I love that. Thanks for sharing, Maddie. The next hand I see is Artie. Artie, how are you doing? Good to see you and hear from you. Why don't you share some best practices? Artie, your microphone, it says that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm having a little bit of technical issues as well, Tim. What I like to do is I like to start off with an icebreaker.
Okay.
And with the icebreaker, you kind of set the mood, set the platform, and you introduce, like everyone introduces themselves. You do like a fun, engaging, interactive icebreaker, and then you kind of going for the kill, if you get what I'm saying. Just kind of like set the platform for it.
That is great. Now, what are your favorite icebreakers, like, or that you've seen or participated maybe at leadership conferences or anything that you facilitated at events? What might yours be?
Well, one of the I used to work in a school, and I was working an after school program. So one of the ones that we enjoyed to do was the name game, because in this way you're learning their names. And you're engaging. So the name game is just basically you're going around in a circle, like everyone's forming. Sorry, my daughter's here as well. She wants to be
that's sweet
today. Yeah. So they say their name, and then they share a food that starts with their name, and then it goes to the next person. But the catch is, this is also a good memorization. They're learning the names. Everybody has to repeat that same thing. Like, for example, RT avocado. And then we're gonna go, Tim, what is your name? And then you have to repeat back mine first. And then the person at the very end has to know everybody's name and food.
Well, it's a great suggestion, Artie Avocado. I'm Tomato Tim. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's so funny. I used to do these leadership conferences, and we would do the name game, and you could even spice them up even more with like, okay, use, instead of just a food, which I think is actually easier, but choose a word or letter that starts with your name that describes your personality, and I would choose something like Titanium Tim because I'm, hard as the hardest metal and things like that. Or you could actually do movements as well. But yes, I do think it's a great icebreaker. And and especially for networking. And what I have also used, I'll add to that, because you mentioned food. I actually think one of the best questions you ask somebody, if you're getting to know them, tell me your favorite food. Now, that might seem like a boring question to somebody, like, I don't know what my boring food is. The way to actually spice it up is to say, imagine you're on death row. Whoa, that's dramatic. We're not going to go into how you ended up in death row, but if you could have one last meal and it could be anything, tell me, what would you eat? And it could be as big as you want, right? So like main course, dessert. And so then people will start sharing all their different favorite foods. And again, it's just a real engaging way to like then to open up. So thanks so much for those suggestions, Audie. Now, Joy, I see your hand raised and you try to fool me with your fully spelled name, but I know who you are, Joy. It's great to see you and connect with you. What best practices do you have?
I'm always ask for like advice or feedback when I'm networking. So when I met the chancellor of the CCC colleges in Chicago,
Yeah.
The president was like, "You need to know who Joy is," and I was like, "I don't know who he is," and I was like, "Well, sir, can you just give me some advice of like how can I be better at something and like how can we continue to network?" He was basically telling me like continue to just be yourself and just make sure that you ask a lot of questions and just don't put everything on your shoulders.
Absolutely. I like that. And then to me, it goes back to what, I think it was Maddie was saying, it's almost like become an interviewer, right? Almost become like pretend you're doing a podcast and you want to get to know a person's life. I used to be very intimidating, when I was first meeting people in college, and I craved intimacy and I wanted it immediately, if you were to psychoanalyze me, it's because I didn't have that growing up and I was looking for love and connection with other people, and anyone who was an introvert, I'd be mad at them. So I would be really intense in the beginning. I'm like, tell me your life story, but sometimes people will actually tell you their life story, or you're like, how long do you have? How much time do you have? What do you want to know? But I think those are great questions of like where you grow up, just asking and being curious. I think it's very good. And I just see a comment from Jessica, joyful Jess. I like that as an adjective to describe your personality. And then food for life. I love it, Artie. So great suggestions, everybody. So now I'm going to jump into what I think are some tips when it comes to networking. So first, the best place to start when it comes to networking is that you have the right mindset. Okay, networking isn't a game where you're just trying to get and meet as many people or and things like that, or get as many contact information. It's actually to transform your networking. It has to be not about you. It has to be about other people. And if you've ever seen people who's like, oh, nice to meet you. And then, hey, everybody, if you guys can mute your microphone, otherwise I'll have to mute everybody. But it's easier for me if you just control your own mute button. But again, not selfish. It's asking the person not what this connection can do for me, but what can I do for that other person? And the reason why that's so important is this goes back to the whole concept of reciprocity that we've learned in previous trainings. This is a very powerful, influential technique, and it's almost on a karmic level. The more you serve, the more you do for people, the more people are wanting to go and do things for you. And again, it's not doing them so that you can get something back. Just do it for the sake of being a loving person, of being a helpful person. It's part of your branding yourself as a connector, as somebody who's very compassionate. They'll just remember, wow, that Tim, I told him about this and he was trying to give me resources and help. And it's like, I like that guy just because he's just so helpful. That's what it's about. Now, I can tell you, it's not about quantity, because I have gone to conferences where I have met like 30, 40 people. I have people sign up on my sheet, whether it was club day or a conference. Yes, I meet with them. I shake their hand. We look very engaging. We exchange information or contact, but I never contact them, right? Or they never contact me. And it just becomes one other person who just you never really connect with. However, if you go to a conference and you really connect with somebody, right? And you develop that close relationship, And if they provide you value, you provide them value. Well, guess what? If you ask them to do anything for you, they'll go above and beyond. Oh, I'll contact this person for you. I'll get that. That means so much more than just how big is your Rolodex. Where those were the old ways of keeping track of people's contact information, where they would put cards and sorted by alphabet. Or how big is your iPhone list? How big is your LinkedIn connections? It's not about the quantity; it's about the quality. So how can I help you? How can I serve you? And then creating memorable experiences. So I've talked with some other leadership experts about how to actually build relationships and real engagement and connection at different events and conferences. And there was this guy named Fabian de Razio, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And he was a leadership speaker. He actually spoke for different companies, whether it was FedEx, Fortune 500s, like just a professional, speaker individual that really helped people take themselves to the next level of leadership. And he said that when you go to conferences, the most important thing has to do with actually creating memorable experiences, right? And it actually has to be for about 3 days. And I'm like, interesting. Why did you say 3 days? He says, because what ends up happening is you could actually have dinner or lunch or breakfast with one other person. But if you're at a conference for 3 days, you get to see multiple people. You get to interact with them for several times. And it's over those meals, it's over those connections that you start to really build a relationship that it's actually something worth maintaining, worth keeping, and you feel a greater connection. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have a conference of 3 days in order to connect with somebody, but to me, the key takeaway that I want you to learn is memorable experiences and quality of time and over a duration. Meaning, if you went to go date somebody, right? You could have a connection with them maybe on a date, but guess what? You wouldn't feel comfortable either kissing them or going even further if you haven't maybe got to know them a little bit more, go on several more dates. It's about, you need to actually build up that time and that quantity in order to feel more comfortable whether you actually trust that person. And so one of the best things that you can do is to create an emotional connection with somebody over a memorable event, doing something fun. So yeah, you could eat over dinner, eat over lunch, but it would be much better if you did some kind of activity, sports, some kind of movie that you're watching, something that moves you emotionally is going to increase that likelihood that you'll remember that person. Oh my goodness, I went with Tim, we did that, ropes course, or we went paintball gunning, or we went to that Halloween scary event. Those are the things that are going to help build those solid connections. Okay. So now let me tell you about my horrible experiences networking. So if you see this really creepy guy right here that I just picked out, again, I would have people come up to me, hi, super outgoing, super trying to create an intimate connection immediately, throwing me their card. Hey, yeah, if you need help with this, or you need help with that, or contact me. It's like, dude, I don't even know you, and you're already throwing your card at me, trying to build a connection as if your goal is quantity or the more people you meet. It's not genuine. It's not deep. It's not on any connection level. And by the way, do you know how many cards I've actually collected from conferences that are sitting right here on my bookshelf that I will never even touch or ever look at again because I just made a note? Maybe someday I'll put it in my contacts, or maybe someday I'll need to contact the person. Never contacted them, never reached out to him. Here's what my experience was more important. If you could actually develop a relationship, and I'm going to share with some of these best practices, I don't need your card. The most important thing for me is that I got your name and I got your contact information, and I'll put it in my phone. Oh my goodness, we had such great connection. Like, hey, I'd love to stay in touch with you. Hey, and I'll pull out my phone. Hey, can you put your number or email in here? And so we can stay. Now it's an active method of actually, or, iPhones or other things, you can actually share contact information. If it's in my phone, it exists permanently, right? I don't have to go back and do something, type it up. That's so much legwork that people put it in my phone. I'll do it for you, right? But if you really have that genuine connection, that is what is the most important thing. And then one of the things that we also learned at conferences, it's hard to kind of remember everything about a different person. You'll have different engaging conversations with people. But what I would do is, if you can't do it right then and there, or if they give you your contact information in the notes section of every contact that I have, you could actually put notes. Hey, this person was about this, or a company, what school they went to, or whatever it may be. These are the different ways, so that when you look at that name again, who the heck was this? What did we talk about? That is the most effective method, because your brain is unreliable to retain all this information. So you have to do these tricks. And if anybody has ever seen the TV show The Office, it's very hilarious. And there's one scene where Michael Scott, who's the protagonist of the whole show, played by Steve Carell, he was the master salesperson. Why? Because he had the Rolodex and did everything he could to memorize and remember things about that person. So again, that's going to be very important for all of you as well. So again, don't just throw your cards at everybody, and don't just expect that if someone hands you a card that you're going to retain it. So here were the type of events that I did over the course of my career that basically I actually had opportunities to network. So the first thing was in college, right? How many people do you know go into classes with, that you sit next to, right? That you're in study hall. Do you understand that I'm kicking myself in the butt, that I actually wish that in college, if I could go back and tell myself, hey, Tim, what's one thing you could do better in terms of networking? It would be immediately, if I establish a connection or something nice with a faculty, a teacher, any kind of a moment where it's memorable, or, they know who I am, I'm going to send them a LinkedIn request, right? I'm going to somehow get their contact information, because again, LinkedIn, as you can tell by the title of this training, I think is going to be the most important social media tool that you will ever find. Yes, there's all these different other tools, Instagram, DMing people, but when it comes to professionalism, right? And this is what we're talking about, knowing where people are working, what are people are doing. LinkedIn is evolving like you wouldn't believe, right? And I think, I have no crystal ball, but I do believe it's going to be the most important social media platform as they're developing. Why? Because people care about their career. People care about making money. People care about their passions and their projects, and they want to share what's going on with them professionally without all that baggage of, look at me, on Instagram and what I'm eating. It's not about that on LinkedIn. It's career oriented. Yes, Artie, definitely on a professional level, LinkedIn is what you need, right? It is the Indeed.com. I like that. So the other thing is, in club fairs or different events that you go to, I think that there's so many times that you met different clubs or, people that I meet in different organizations. Man, I'm kicking myself wishing that I had connected with them, got their contact information, and got their LinkedIn. Because guess what? Over the course of your life, you're going to meet thousands of people. All right. I'm not going to tell you that it's your job to actually maintain relationships with all these people and stay up with them and contact them, wish them happy birthday. No. Why? Because I don't do that. And I actually don't think that's realistic. To me, it's, you want to actually genuinely connect with people that you really connect with, that you care about, that you have this deep connection. Those are the people that you can store in your phone, their birthdays, wish them well. But everybody else can just be a professional acquaintance, right? And that's why you have LinkedIn, to kind of, you don't have to follow up with them all the time, but at least you know that they exist. You can actually find them, you can locate them and things like that, while they still remember you. All right, the next event was volunteer activities. So I went to political events, I went to fundraisers, but the most important was Landmark Worldwide. Those who who've seen my trainings know that Landmark transformed my life. I spent hours upon hours hanging out with different coaches, connecting with people. Because I spent time with them, Those were the greatest connections. And here's what it also did. You want to be surrounded by people who are like-minded, right? So any type of professional development organization where people are going to either exercise or learn about sales or learn about leadership, those are your people. So you want to do events and actually stay connected with those type of people. Now, I have a lot of stories to tell you that just because they're there doesn't necessarily mean they get an A+ for being amazing people or actually high integrity, but at least you're meeting the type of individuals that that you'll meet. Okay. The next thing is work. So I actually went to a lot of different conferences. In the college world, when I was working for the National Society of Leadership and Success, there was conferences called the Association of Program Campus Activities, National Association of Campus Activities, and all these were organizations that you get to, you know, meet with people, vendors, exhibitors. I'm assuming that some of you have been to those kind of conferences, or there could be unrelated to work. You can actually go to different convention centers, right? It could be about your favorite topic, whether it's comic books, or for my work, I would have to go to the book expo, right? And so the reason why I'm bringing up all these conferences, because I would go there with a mission. I'm trying to get something, either something for my company, something for my business. I'd meet a lot of people, but it was really hard to meet people, connect with people. It was loud. The best way to actually connect with people is over meals, right? And so I would rush up to them. Hi, I'm Tim. I would introduce myself. I would have my elevator pitch. But guess what? It was too superficial. It was too quick. It didn't work. You want to know what was the most successful networking opportunities I had at a conference? It was when I actually planned a month ahead of the actual conference. I figured out who are the people that I really want to reach out to. I got their contact information and I reached out to them and I said, hey, I have this. Are you going to this book expo? Are you going to this conference? I'd love to schedule a meeting with you and be able to connect. And so can we schedule some time to meet, right? And we would have meeting times, and we will, yeah, some people cancel last minute, but let me get your cell phone in case there's an emergency that we can't connect. So already I'm getting their contact information. And you would need to follow up several weeks in advance because people don't always respond right away. They may not know. And so when I actually showed up that conference, guess what? It wasn't me trying to smooth and connect with as many people as I can. And I still did that a couple at different events. But what really mattered was sitting down with people, actually having the time where we weren't rushed. We were all, I only have 5 minutes to talk. What's up? What do you want? What do you need? What can I help you? It was all transactional. When I actually had sit-down meetings, we actually got connected. And again, do you know how many thousands of people I've met, from advisors, leadership professionals, teachers, all this other stuff, that I'm kicking myself in the butt. So please don't make the mistake I did. And even though I had great connections, I didn't do the necessary actions and follow up. I didn't actually get their contact information, or I didn't connect with them on LinkedIn. And I wish I had, right? So it's a new habit that I really want you all to be able to develop, you know. All right. Thanks, Jordan, for all the different concepts. Yes, I'm reading Beth's comment. It's also perfectly acceptable to remove people who aren't adding to your network. 100%. I think that you should separate yourselves from people that harm you, either emotionally, you know, physically, whatever it may be. And guess what? Just because, you know, you don't jive, I've had to break off relationships, people in my business, right? That I say, you know what? I don't want to wish you harm, but I just want you to, I wish nothing but the best for you, but our relationship has to end. You know, I can't continue working with you for whatever reason that might be, whether it's integrity, lack of integrity. Again, I'm not here to judge you. I wish you the best. And you want to wish them the best because you don't want to put that juju out into the universe that you hate them, they get you upset. But again, Beth, you're going to make me go on a whole separate tangent just with that. But wait till I get to the next week's training about how to start your business. And I'll tell you all the different individuals I started businesses with, which again, I regret a little bit, and I made mistakes. And again, I'm not here pleading that I'm the most successful business person, but like I shared with all of you, Elected Society is about me sharing my experiences with you. So if I failed at a business, then I want you to know about my failures and learn from them so that you can all make a different path. And I actually trusted certain people. And it was only after I went in business and saw how they performed and I got burned that I actually had to learn my own discernment of people. And I actually think, if I can get a little bit on the soapbox here, all the new generation of people are all on their phones, right? Connecting with text messages and everything like that. How about actually connecting people, reading their body language, seeing them eye to eye, noticing when you ask them questions, how they respond or react. These are skills that we all need to develop. Otherwise, like I mentioned in the previous trainings, there's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing out there, right? And so you have to be able to distinguish who's who. And I'm telling you, like I said before, and I can't remember which training was it, people lie, and they lie all the time. They exaggerate about their accomplishments. They exaggerate on their connections, on who they know, that they'll be able to help you. Or what's even worse, they promise that they're going to help you or connect with you, and then you never hear from them again, or you have to follow up with them 100 times. And that brings me up to this slide. So when it comes to networking in your profession, there's going to be a common recommendation. Why don't you join an organization? Why don't you join a club? Because that's a great way to network with people. Now, I'm going to give you the information that I wish that I knew in college. There are so many professional networking organizations out there that are specific on the specific topics that you may be interested in, right? But here are the most popular. One is called BNI, it's Business Networking International, and the second largest is LATIP International, right? And then there's other clubs called Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, and then for local businesses, you might have local chamber of commerce for whatever town that you live in, right? So some of these associations, there's also Young Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. Again, I couldn't list all of the different organizations. I do think it's very helpful, okay, to join these organizations, but many of you are college students or just recently graduated or not rolling in the dough. You don't need them, okay? You don't need them. If you're making enough money in business, you can add that. But why am I sharing that experience? Because I believe in finding ways to do stuff that's inexpensive, cheap, free, as all these trainings are for all of you, because again, if the information can help you, it can help you. So I had a friend, he lives in New Jersey. I live in New York. And he's like, Tim, I know that you're doing your own business. Why don't you join this networking group? And they used to do it in person and have meetings, but now it's, all via Zoom. And I'm like, that's great, because I love to work from home, et cetera, right? So it was called LATIP, right? And they had their own branch, Coastal LATIP. So what you do, you join the free session, they invite you, you meet, you give a 5-minute pitch, let them know about yourself. You get to meet everybody. Then you can pay a membership fee. I think it was something like $400 a year or whatever. It could even been $200. Don't quote me on the actual number, but you could pay it in installments. I'm like, all right, let me see if I can generate a business from this. So a lot of the people that are on there are lawyers, real estate agents, property, commercial property, buyers, sellers, what else was there? There was like title researching, auditing, mechanics in terms of air conditioning. So there was a whole variety of different types of fields, plumbing, electricians, whatever it may be, maybe some health people who were into their own yoga studios, whatever it may be. Right. So I was there to help them save money. Right. So I did a whole presentation. All right. A 20-minute presentation telling them about me and stuff like that. And I said, by the way, I have a free service for all of you to benefit so you can start saving money now. And I told them about, this bill negotiation, which I shared with all the Elected Society members in Creating Wealth, my story. And I said, the biggest way to make money is to save money, right? And so it's like, cut your expenses down. And I share with them how I could save them money on their telephone bill, their cable bill. And you just have people who are professionals at calling the companies on your behalf and say, hey, what can you do for us? Let me speak with your manager. Other companies are charging this, you're charging this. What are you going to do for us? Hey, give us some loyalty credits. We've been there for how many years? And they actually reduce your bills. And then whatever they save you, they split the difference. And I'm like, I thought everybody was going to like jump on this. This is my just way of giving back. And again, I gave the link to all of you below, so you can still do this if you haven't done it yet. So I sent an email to all of them. Nobody responded. Okay. And I was like, wow, like this is a networking group. Like, this is what I'm like, okay, then like next week, I introduced myself. I reminder everybody, I have this thing for you. One person, like the lead of the group, oh yeah, we should check that out. Right. Or another person says, yeah, I'll look into that. No. Here's what was the reality of it is this, and I'm going to talk this more about sales and starting your own business, is like, do you realize how many people are just super busy and only care about what they care about, right? They're too busy focused on their own businesses to even take time to save money for themselves, right? Even if it didn't cost anything. People are overwhelmed. And so I was kind of shocked, and it was kind of like humbling to say, wow, I sent like 3 or 4 different follow-ups to people. These are all these different, my networking group. I supposedly joined this community, and people are dropping the ball left and right. And so it just goes to show you, I'm telling you this example because it goes back to what we're talking about networking. These people don't know me on an intimate level. I haven't really spent a lot of time with them. There's no social capital. I haven't, even though I was trying to add value for them, they're going to do what they're going to do. And it's only through, developing relationships with people, adding value. And if I could help serve them and give me time, could it actually work? And so the reason why I bring this up is because that's only 30 people. Okay. If you're doing something or connecting with people, there are so many people out here in this world. They're not just those 30 people, right? And what's even worse, okay, again, forgive me for getting a little dark on here, is how do you know just because they're a lawyer who's part of this community who does property, damage and stuff, are they the best lawyer, right? Oh, use my business just because you know me. It's like, dude, I want to find the best person for the job, not just because you're part of my networking group. So again, I'm sharing this because these are my experiences and things that I learned. If you join them and you get business from them or you get value from them, great. You can learn. I learned a lot. I'm not judging anybody for doing that, but you could actually be much more successful going out and reaching out to the people, to the customers, to the individuals that you want to connect with in your career, in your field, than just joining one of these groups. So again, join the group if you want, if it provides a return on the investment, if you're getting more value than you're putting in. But for me, I did it for about a year. I think 1 or 2 people used the service, and that was it, and even with testimonials, and people said, hey, this is great, Tim, I recommend everybody else do it. They're like, no, they just kept doing what they're doing. And I'm like, my time is valuable, and I only want to spend it with things that are really going to make a difference. Okay. So now we're going to do a little exercise. So the most important question that you're going to get in an interview, right? Or if you're meeting somebody is like, tell me about yourself. And so that's a very difficult question to answer. So I would like to help you guys devise that answer. Okay. And maybe you might have already a template that you say, hey, my name is Tim, I'm studying environmental science, I went to Queens College, I graduated this year, I work in this field. That is the bare minimum that probably most of you have been able to do. But I want you to up it a level, because when someone asks you to tell me about yourself, this is your chance for you to, like the movie Inception, plant in their brain, when I think of Artie, when I think of Maddie, when I think of these people, what are the key words that I'm supposed to associate them with, right? So I wanted you to do this exercise right now. We're going to spend, I would just say 4 minutes, okay? And maybe it seems a lot. You text me if you guys complete this exercise and say done, 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 done. So that means we can, move on to the next material. But I want you to ask yourself, at least these 4 questions, right? Who are you and what do you do? So where do you grow up? Where you went to college? What do you study? Why you studied that? That's important. What are your skills and strengths? Like for me, I would tell people leadership, management. What are your accomplishments? Okay, what have you done? What work have you done? What kind of stuff have you volunteered? If you haven't really done a lot, what have you learned, right? And then I gave you an example right here. What is your, because that's what you need to really communicate to people, right? If you're really doing what you love and you're pursuing your passion, then you need to communicate to people, right? What's the specific event that changed you, right? If you won the lottery, what would you do? So these are the kind of questions to think about. And again, why are you applying for this job? You don't have to answer this because we're not going to pretend that you're applying the job, but give a reason, and don't just make it, I need money. I need to pay bills, right? So take 4 minutes and do that right now. Go. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand to do so. So we got some fast people. So I'm going to speed this up. Instead of making it 4 minutes, I'll just give you guys 2 minutes, okay? So 1 more minute. And for those of you who already have an elevator pitch, right, like Beth and others, now's your chance to customize it, right? Like if you wrote a paper, the first draft is not going to be as good as the second draft or the third draft or the fourth draft. So see what you can do to improve it, make it more succinct, to write it out. So practice that. Fifteen more seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's keep going. Now, again, practice, share this out loud. You feel free to do this with a family member, a friend, especially for before job interviews. But the more that you can crystallize that and really communicate your passions and who you are, that's how you want to be remembered. So this is a refresher from level 1, where we talked about secrets to active and engaged members. I shared with you the secret to have active and engaged members or people in your life is to become best friends with them. Okay. And how do you become friends? Is you actually find similarities in interest and values, right? And I showed this image of stepbrothers. And again, I talked about these 6 steps on developing relationships. Well, guess what? Those are the same steps that you need in order to develop small talk and really connect with people. It's like, through that small talk, how can I actually become your best friend for us to connect? So let's go through these, and I'm actually going to go a little bit deeper than we did during the level 1, because this is level 3. We're going to actually do some exercises with that. So the first tip was, in terms of small talk, is being vulnerable, right? So Maddie, this goes a little opposite that what you have shared in the beginning, where it's like, I ask them questions to them, and then, by them asking, that works. So I don't want you to think that I'm not saying that that's not an effective method. But what actually another method is to actually share from you, right? Because remember, from high performance communication, there are different personality types. What if the person that you're talking to is high degree of steadiness, right? They're the ones who are a little risk averse, like the kind of the turtle. Well, one of the best ways that you can actually start, developing that relationship is being very vulnerable. Now, I really learned from my, I guess, upbringing that my life was an open book. All right. I can tell you anything. All right. I actually had to reel it in a little bit because now that I have a wife, I can't like be spreading all her business out. I have to kind of like check in with her before I share the stories with the world. But listen, by me opening up, even in Electus Society, you guys know about all my demons in my closets, all the stuff that I've been through. Why? Because by me sharing my life and putting out, being super vulnerable, you guys learned something. And you know what happens by you being super vulnerable? People end up saying, wow, you really shared with me about like, how you had an abusive father or he was a drunk. Again, I'm making that up, but whatever thing that you're sharing, people really connect with that. Like that was a deep emotional thing that most people would be afraid to share, but you shared that. I feel a little bit more comfortable sharing with you about my life. Now, here's the thing that I also want you to be very cautious of. That could be very manipulative too, right? And, that's almost like a superpower. People who are like so open with you, and then suddenly you're super open with them, and they can take advantage. This is all about being discerning and actually choosing who the people you are to want to be vulnerable with. But it is a very effective technique to really open people up by you starting to share first. Here's the second one, and I think this is the most important, is actually share stories. But we're going to do an exercise right now, which is going to really help you. What stories do you share? Okay. And you've probably told stories before about your life, but I'm sorry to say it, they might be boring. Telling stories is a gift. It is a skill, right? And there are certain techniques to be able to do that. And I'm going to share it with you. But first, we can't start telling stories until you realize that number one, you're an amazing person. Okay. Number two, you've been through stuff. I don't even need to know your life story. You got here, you've been through stuff. Okay. And it takes some time to actually reflect all the different things that you've been through. But the things that have happened to you only become interesting if you actually share them in the form of a story. Okay. And so what I want you to do right now is we're going to do an exercise, and I want you don't have to write out the story. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you just to write a key word or a short couple of words to represent the different events that happen into your life. Okay. List as many stories, things that happen to you, important events throughout your entire life. Now, for me, it's hard for me to remember, oh, what did I do when I'm 1 or 2? But for me, it just go back to the times, and the first image that pops into your head of something that happened to you, write it down, right? So for example, in preschool, was there something that happened to you? Okay, like for me, yeah, I remember there was a girl and another girl, and my sister had stick-on earrings, and I would give them as gifts to these other girls, right? And and I remember taking them and giving them, and I'm like, uh-oh, Tim is already going to have a problem, liking women too much or something like that. Maybe it was a foreshadow, right? But I say that as a humorous thing because, again, that's an important or funny story, right? That I took my sister's earrings. What other stories happened to me? Oh, I broke my arm when I was a kid, jumping off a roof. That's a story to tell. You could just say, I broke my arm. But again, later on, you'll be learning how to flesh out those stories. What other happened when I was in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade? Oh, 5th grade, I got my bike stolen. All right. When I was in college, what happened to you? So anything that's either exciting, dangerous, shocking, memorable, whatever it is, write it down. Okay. So just like last time, I'm going to give you 2 minutes and write as many different things that happened to you down right now. Go. 30 more seconds. Five, four, three, two, 1, 0. Okay. So because we only have a limited time during this training, we can't really go through each one of these stories and have you write them out. But I'm going to say, like, that's should be your homework. Okay. Really go out and try to say, okay, out of all these stories, which are funny, entertaining, interesting, that you feel comfortable sharing, that, would be a great way to connect with people. And again, I'll share you a funny story that happened with me, just very briefly. So people are always fascinated to learn that my wife is a twin. Okay. So they're like, what, twin? And so again, is there any kind of cool, interesting stories that are that? And there is. And I'm going to tell you how I almost kissed the wrong sister. Okay, so let me explain to you what happened. So we were going to Niagara Falls, right? And if everyone's ever been to Niagara Falls, is these big waterfalls, and underneath are these platforms, wooden platforms that you can get very, very close to the waterfall and feel close and almost touching the water. But because it's so rainy and so heavy with all the water, you get to wear a poncho and these special shoes. So everyone looks like a yellow mini-me, okay? And my sister, my sister-in-law and my wife were wearing glasses, and they're twins, right? So we're walking up around this path, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this was so romantic, like to be with my wife right here. And that whole weekend, she was being very like mean with me, like, get away from me, again, this was when we were dating during college time period, right? And so I'm like, you know what, I don't care, I really want to kiss her, this is this big romantic moment. So I reached in to like grab her, like, come, give me a kiss, this romantic moment. It's so loud with all the thing. And she's like pushing him away. I'm like, oh, come on, like, let's just do it. And as I move to lean in closer, guess what? She yells in my face, stop, it's me, Jennifer. And I'm like, oh, this is not Michelle. Oh my goodness, and then what ended up happening, I looked around, my wife was already like several decks up and she's looking back, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I said, the moral of the story is be very careful who you try to kiss in who is standing next to you, okay? or you can get in trouble. So again, that was just a very, very quick story. Why did I tell you that story? Was it interesting? Did I hook you in? Were you fascinated to see how it happened? Well, that really leads us to do you know how many times I've actually had to tell that story? Again, maybe I could have got more detail, but I wanted to rush it just because for the sake of this training, but I try to incorporate all these topics of telling a good story. I've said that story at so many different dinner parties and things because people just love to hear when they see the two ends of, oh my God, you guys almost look identical. So here is your tip on how to build better stories. So tip number 1 is tease them, right? Give them some kind of hook. Oh, it's like, I got to tell you about this true story that you're not going to believe, right? What does that do? It makes people say, interesting, I want to learn more, or you're going to want to hear this, right? And if you noticed, my hook with my story was, let me tell you about the time I almost kissed my twin sister, right? So it's like, oh my goodness, what really happened? The second thing, other tip in telling good stories is voice variety, right? Where it's not like, so this is what happened. I went to my sister-in-law, we were on this. It's like expressive, changing the words, emphasizing them. This is what good storytellers do, right? The other thing is acting out the stories, right? Convey emotion. I was like, oh my gosh, all these kind of things, great storytellers are like acting them out, miming them out. And people feel these emotions. They're describing their emotions. They're acting. So it's almost like you're watching a movie, right? This is what you need in order to tell a good story. And then lastly, once you end the story, you can end it with some kind of moral. hey, point of the story is, hey, be careful where you kiss, or make sure that before you kiss somebody, it's your partner, whatever it is, because it almost puts like an end, like a period at the end of the story, so that people know that it's over. Because sometimes people like don't know, is there more to the story? Is it going to end? And it ends up really awkwardly. It's the period, right? And the moral of the story could be even funny, right? It doesn't have to be like, the point of the story is we should all love each other, right? But it could be that. So what I'm going to do, because we don't have time in the training today, I love to have shown a lot of different videos. Those of you guys know from previous trainings, I'm a big fan, and I have used a lot of the Charisma on Command YouTube channel, different tips and suggestions, whether it was how to listen, how to communicate. Well, here are 3 videos that I'm going to provide you when I send out the recording, and I'm going to make it available, where you can actually say, if you really want to get better at stories, you can watch these 3. Again, I kind of summarize some of these tips that you've seen, but to see and hear more examples and a lot more stuff that I didn't have time to put into this training right now, use those, watch those. But if you want to take your story to the next level, guess what? You have to write them out. You actually have to practice them out loud. And do you know what comedians do in order to get their 1-hour special on Netflix? They tour around the country for several months, doing joke after joke after joke, the same jokes. And guess what? They see how the audience reacts. They'll change them, right? When I would actually assert, once they really connected to their higher selves and like in the moment and present with the goal of like really, making the audience laugh and be joyful, that's the moment where it's like, oh, the way I phrased that, the way that landed, the way I put emphasis on this word, the way I ended that story, that's what killed, right? That's what made everybody. So what they're doing is, just like you write a paper and you draft till it becomes perfect, they're doing the same thing. And great authors do the same things, and they actually write it out, and they have editors, and they say, how does this sound? And they go to the audience, that the people that buy those books, what do you think of this book? And they make changes. So if you're going to be a networker, you're going to have to be a storyteller about your life and your things that happen to you, whether it's your business, telling stories about, how you're helping people, what you're doing with your passion. So it takes practice. Okay. Oh, Beth, I just saw your comment right now. You had a twin brother who had way too much fun with that. They knew I knew all the tricks, so my twin sons didn't get away with any of that. I love that. Yeah, it's so funny to have twins. We hope that someday we might have twins as well, because it's just, have a birth, bang them both out at the same time. Very, very easy and simple. All right. So let's keep going. So now back to small talk. The next one is be authentic. Don't fake it. And just be curious. And this is my favorite example that I love to give, where it goes back to what we were talking about before of those discussions. If you don't like tattoos, you do not have to fake with somebody that you like tattoos just so that you can network and connect. Don't do that. Just be authentic. If someone has covered in tattoos, be curious instead of judgmental. It's like, can you tell me? I've been terrified, of wanting tattoos, and you have them all over your body. Tell me, why do you like those tattoos? I'm very curious. What do you love about them? And then you can start being curious, asking them questions, and not have to fake it that you don't really like tattoos, but at least you're accepting them and you're actually being curious. So that's a great way to be in terms of networking and small talk. Ask open-ended questions. This is so important. So when we go back to our earlier discussions, like, most common thing everybody asks in college is, what's your major? Okay. That's a closed-ended question. What is your major? Environmental science. An open-ended question allows the person to actually share as much information as possible, right? So it's, why did you choose that major? Okay. Why did you choose this college? Okay. How difficult was it for you to get into this college? How did you, have kids? How was the experience of you giving birth? Again, why and how questions is the actual way to actually engage with people and have those open-ended questions. What makes the awkward questions are closed-ended questions. So what's your favorite movie? Oh, Batman. Oh, cool, cool. I like Batman too. You know, what do you like to eat? Italian food. Oh, yeah, 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 me too. You're like, oh goodness, this is terrible. Shoot me now. I want to be out of this conversation. I should be home watching television. But oh, tell me why. Why is that your favorite movie? What do you love about it so much? You know, things like that. If you can do that a lot more, you know, it would be beneficial. Beth, I'm reading your comment. Ask why they chose a particular tattoo design. That's a good open-ended question. Everyone with a tattoo loves that. Yeah, there's a story behind everything. And this is my favorite to engage in small talk is just say, tell me more about this. Tell me the story about how you met your partner. Tell me the story. Just asking for stories, people will give them to you. If they didn't attend this training, they may not be prepared to tell you that story. But now that you've attended this training, you'll know, oh, you know, Tim's asked us to actually write out stories of our lives so that when we are in these situations of small talk, we can tell a very compact, concrete, interesting story. But if you don't got anything, then ask them. And it could be about anything. Tell me about the story about how you got this car. Tell me about the story on, you know, how you got your dog. You know, you could do it about any specific, tell me the story how you got the tattoo, right? Anything like that. It works. And then the last tip is care about everyone and don't judge, right? This is really big. Again, I don't think this is going to be a problem for this community because, again, we have all these values that we've agreed to and live by. But there's a lot of different people out there, right? Different thoughts, different feelings, different stuff, different way they look, different way they act. And it's like, guess what? Let's just all be childlike and just love and accept these people and their souls that as individuals on their own journey. And we're just interesting. And it's okay to say, hey, what you're doing is very different than what I was raised up as, or how I grew up. Tell me more about that. How did you come to that? How did that experience? I want to know. I want to be curious. The more you can accept people and love them and care about them as individuals and pretend as if they're your brother or sister, okay, that they're your cousin, right? Guess what? They will feel that, okay? We're so conditioned to judge people. It's the survival, the fight or flight. It's that brain of ours that says, is this person dangerous or not? Are they clean or dirty? Good or evil? And if we can just take a moment to accept that, it will transform your relationship, and you could have the strangest of friends, and people that you never thought that you would be friends can now become friends. So that's a recap. Be vulnerable, share stories, be authentic, ask open-ended questions, ask for stories, and care about everybody, and just don't judge. Okay. So I'm actually going to show you a quick little video right now, and that's going to lead us to talk about networking. Okay. I tried to embed the film, but it wasn't working. So I'm going to click on this. Just let me know in the chat if you're able to see this. Okay. Can everyone see this video? Perfect.
No, I've actually always found something to be very true, which is most people don't get those experiences because they never ask. I've never found anybody that didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. I always call them up. I called up, this will date me, but I called up Bill Hewlett when I was 12 years old, and he lived in Palo Alto. His number was still in the phone book. And he answered the phone himself. He said, yes. He said, hi, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm 12 years old. I'm a student in high school, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I could have. And he laughed, and he gave me the spare parts to build this frequency counter, and he gave me a job that summer in Hewlett Packard, working on the assembly line, putting nuts and bolts together on frequency counters. He got me a job in the place that built them. And I was in heaven. And I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. You gotta act, and you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to crash and burn, with people on the phone, with starting a company, with whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far.
What a great video. So I shared that because let me actually go back to and share the screen. The reason is you're going to be able to do that when it comes to networking. So I'm actually a big fan of people actually asking to connect with them, meaning asking to network with them. And so that means reaching out to people that are your complete strangers and telling them, hey, I want to connect with you and see what's possible. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen right now. And I'm going to show you the different tips that we can do in order to network with people. Give me 1 second. Share screen. Here we go. So this is my action step that I'm actually asking all of you to do to start networking with people. Request and ask for an interview. It is the easiest thing for you to do. You can ask complete strangers in your field, your topic of interest, and say, hey, I want to interview because I'm curious about this, or we have a similar connection, or I'm interested in tattoos and you're a tattoo artist and I'd like to learn from you. I think that there is something inherently in us that, you know, for most of the part, that people really like to help other people, especially if they're a good character, virtuous, you know, have a lot of values. It's the idea of giving back and pay it forward. And by you actually requesting that interview and getting to interview them, you can actually build that relationship and build a connection. And the best thing is to request the time for them to either do it on a Zoom, or like have a meeting, a scheduled meeting, do it in person, do it over tea, coffee, or meal, because guess what? That's a relaxed environment. People need to eat. It gives people to talk and share. And you'd be surprised, you know, how much of a genuine connection you can create just over a meal. Okay. So now what I want to share with you when it comes to requesting and networking, let's just say you've requested an interview, you've talked with somebody, or it could be a small talk, right? You're just connecting at a conference or whatever, you meet this person. If you have the mindset of how I can help you, right, that we talked about before, how can I serve you? Then there's a lot of things that you could actually do. It might be, hey, maybe here's a book that you should read. Here's a contact information of an individual that you might want to check out. Here's a video, whatever it may be, you should follow this guy or listen to this person's podcast. Now, when you do that and you offer your value, do it immediately, right? Hey, can I share this information with you? Let me send this to you right now. Let's look up this individual. Why do I tell you to do it immediately? Because when you're at a conference or you want to give somebody a network or a resource or whatever it is, I would say my experience, I've met so many people that have promised me to send me something, email me something, but guess what happens? Life gets busy. They get distracted. They just never do it. They can do it a month later. You've missed the opportunity to really add value or help that person's life. And guess what you've also done? You've missed an opportunity to get their contact information over there, right? How hard is it for you, if you know somebody, to send them a text message and say, hey, can I introduce you to somebody? You know, do a chat. Hey, John, I want to introduce you to Joy. You know, she's part of my community of leaders with Electus Society, and she's really interested in learning more about, you know, whatever it is, criminal justice. Hope you guys can connect. That's it. Now you've given them the contact information. You've immediately say, wow, this person was so helpful. You know, I really appreciate that. Now I have their contact information. So these are the really easy things that you can do. Now, if it involves something a little bit bigger, right, you cannot do it at that second. You need to schedule it. But guess what? The first thing you should do, let me put that in my calendar. And you know, from my previous trainings in the Electus Society, if it's, if you say that you're going to do it Friday, hey, I'll do it by this Friday, do it by Wednesday. So in your calendar, put it on Wednesday, and you put a note, send Johnny this information or send Joy this contact information. Maybe you didn't have it here. Guess what that does? Now you're building a positive reputation. You told that person you were going to send it Friday, and boom, you got home that night, you already sent them the information. That already says, wow, this is a person who's really adding value. This is one person's really supporting me. Second action step that you can do, now that you've connected them at the conference, wherever you're going to meet, are you on LinkedIn? Let me send a connection with you, right? Once you have a connection with LinkedIn, you have access to that person, right? You have access, and we're going to talk about that. Eventually, you may not even need their email, but you can actually connect through people and their emails through LinkedIn. So it's a very, very powerful tool. Okay. So let's keep going. Now, this is LinkedIn, okay? I love it because it's free. I didn't have to put any kind of crazy background or take a picture or anything like that. LinkedIn provided these free images that you can make it very interesting. And I'm like, I chose this one because I work from remote, from home, and it's like, it looks like all the different persons of a person's life. Hey, listen, it looks nice, it's presentable. See this picture? It's a very simple picture. You don't need anything complicated. And then you can actually put words or keywords for if job people are looking for different individuals. I type them in right there as my subheading. This is my branding, right? This is what I'm doing. So for those of you who are not in LinkedIn, I suggest that you do it. For those of you who already have a LinkedIn page, but you just haven't used it, it's time for you to actually get it updated. Underneath my name, when you actually scroll down, you'll see my profile. It's a little biography, a little description about me. You're going to want to do the same thing for you, right? Flush it out. If somebody, it's your elevator pitch, everything that we just talked about before. It's the way in which I had somebody described what is the profile description of you on LinkedIn. You have to pretend as if you were about to go and speak in front of an audience and somebody only had a very short time to introduce you. What would they say about you? That is what your profile should say, right? So here are all the benefits of the LinkedIn. It's your professional identity. It's your opportunity to build a network. You can search for people, jobs, and companies, which I think is very, very valuable, right? And if you pay a little money, you can get advanced searches that I'm going to show you all today, right? And the most important thing is in-mail messages, okay? So if those of you are not familiar with LinkedIn, there's a difference between sending regular messages within LinkedIn and sending in-mail messages. What's the difference? A regular message is like saying, hey, I have to be logged in into my LinkedIn or have it open, and then I could see that somebody sent me like a text message, send me a message. But an in-mail message is when you actually get a notification in your personal email that says, hey, Maddie just sent you an email, and here's a brief description of what she said. Hi, Tim, da, 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 da. And then it probably has like a 2-sentence or word limit. And then you're like, ooh, I want to read that message. I'm going to open it up. So now it sets you up. Now, again, you don't need in-mail messages if you can find somebody's actual email online, which is preferred, because in-mail messages, they're only a limited amount that you can send, or if you pay more money, you can send a lot more, but it's still a quantity, a limited quantity. So again, I always say, try email first. Then if you can't get their email, then you can use the LinkedIn, okay? Let me see. I see a couple of chats here. Let's see. LinkedIn sometimes offers free premium service. Take advantage of it. Okay, very good. Veterans can get free premium account. Okay, thanks so much, Beth, for those resources. I think that's great. And then, yeah, you can try it for a period of time as well. So now let me share with you about the paid versions of LinkedIn and how I've used them. So the first paid level is Premium Career. It's $29 a month. Now, by the way, I just want to be 100% transparent. I'm not getting paid by LinkedIn or anything for referring them to get this. I'm just telling you, I want to provide you information so that it's valuable, right? Premium is very good. Business is in the next level, right? And it costs more. And then there's the highest level, which is Sales Navigator. Those are for people who really want to hunt people down. Now, I personally liked Career, or I liked the business aspect of it. I didn't want to go to Sales Navigator because I did it and I hated it, because anytime I used it, instead of sending me in-mail messages, I had to go through a separate window or a separate platform to do it. They've made it improvements, and because of the nature of my business, I had to get Sales Navigator. But I'll show you both so that you guys understand. But as long as you know the difference between a regular message and an in-mail message is the most important. So if you have Premium Career, you get 5 in-mail credits. If you get Premium Business, 15, Sales Navigator, 50. And Recruiter, like, you guys are not recruiters because you guys are not recruiting people. So that's not important for you to know. Okay. So I want to share with you bad networking messages. So I hid their name. This is somebody who reached out to me. Hello, after reading your profile, I feel that you're an excellent leader. Well, thank you. All right. What kind of management methods do you use to lead employees? Do you live in Queens too? Unfortunately, I think this is just another spam. They did a little work, tried to personalize it. Oh, they typed in the keyword leader, da, da, da. Right now, unfortunately, LinkedIn is now being used for people to use as a dating app, right? And sometimes I think people try to use it and get these kind of connections, hopefully that you can go on a date with them. But I didn't respond, or I think I said, no, thanks, whatever, ended it, But I actually wanted to show you what I have used as an email message or a LinkedIn messages. So what's really has worked for me. So in this example, I use Gmail, right? And you can actually get an application called Yam, where it basically says, if you create a draft email and you put these little, parentheses, it will autofill that name in there. Okay. Which is very convenient. And you can even customize it different rows and different columns. So I was doing research for Electa Society and I wanted to network with more SGA advisors. So I said, hi, whatever name that person was. My name is Tim Duffy. My bio is below. And so underneath this would be my bio, because I didn't want to spend time like explaining. If they really want to curious about me, they can read that. Because we're both in higher education field, now I'm already saying, listen, we're similar. We're connected, right? Now you don't have to use that. You could say we went to the same school. We both are interested in tattoos. Whatever that connection that makes it that you want for that person, that's what you mentioned, right? And this one, it was because you advise student government at this school. Can I please schedule a quick phone call or Zoom meeting with you this week or next week? Now, some people would just end it right then and there. Okay. I haven't done enough testing to see whether that short message works or not. Okay. But that you can do that on your own. Most things that I've heard, the less is more, but I have a bad habit of being very conscientious and getting all the information in there because I want to treat other people how I would want to be treated because I need more information. So that's what I do. So now so in the first paragraph was exactly what I want. It's my ask. I want to call. I want to meet with you with Zoom. Okay. Second paragraph is the little bit more detail. The reason I want to meet with you is because I want to learn more about your student government. I want to collect best practices. Now I'm telling you about my passion. I'm on a mission to help student leaders become engaged advocates. Okay. Now notice how I'm making it real. I'm not just saying, hey, can we connect with you this week or next week? Because most people don't respond or don't know when they're available. It's a lot of work. I do one step easier for them. And I learned this a lot in sales. Tell me when you're available. If I want to meet with them next week, I'm like, are you available Monday from, 1 to 5 or Tuesday from 6 to 9, and I'll give those times in the time zones. Does that work for you? Because now instead of them having to look at their calendar and follow up, it's like, oh, they're actually giving me a concrete time and place that they want to meet with them. So now I can either say I'm available or I'm not, right? And they'll say, yeah, that works. Because you know what I hate? Emails back and forth. Oh yeah, how about this day? How about this day? I'm like, I'm busy. I got stuff to do. Like here are the times. All right. Does this work for you? And then in the next paragraph or sentence, I say, if those days don't work for you, here's my Calendly link. You can just schedule it up. That does work for you. Now, people are very funny about egos and stuff like that. I've tested out putting my Calendly link, and you know what it does? It almost makes me see, you schedule a meeting with me. Who's more important? Am I more important than you? Are you more important than me? So I don't believe, I just for email etiquette, I think that the best thing is to say, here's when I'm available. Does that work for you? And if not, here's another method, because they may be busy and it might be too many steps to click on a link, to then put in their contact information, to then select a time. People are busy, right? People want the easiest thing. So I get that. And then this is the most important sentence. If you're not interested in meeting with me, that's okay. Just please let me know and I'll stop bugging you. I respect your time and inbox. How many emails did you really get from people, right? That's just my little thing that I say. Why? Because I will reach out to 30 different people and email advisors, and maybe 1 or 2 people might say, hey, Tim, sure, let's meet. And then I might get 1 or 2 people that say, no, Tim, I'm not interested in meeting you. So guess what? Now I have 4 less names that I need to follow up with. Okay. So now I have 2 meetings on my calendar, 2 people who have no interest in meeting with me. And now I can follow up next week, and I'll put in the subject email, second follow-up. And it's a shorter version of this. Hey, I reached out to you last week to schedule a meeting. Can we please schedule a meeting this week or next week? And then again, some of the same stuff. Some of them don't respond. Some of them do. So 1 or 2 might say, no, I'm not interested, whatever. Then I send them a 3rd email the following. So over 3 weeks, I reach them again and again and again. And guess what happens? I'll get maybe 1 or 2 more meetings. This is a little bit about sales. This is a little bit about networking. What people, sometimes students do, or other people say, it's like, they didn't respond, they don't care. No, they probably see it, or like, oh, I'm dealing with this crisis or this crisis. They just don't have time. Like, oh, I'll get back to that later. And you think you're insulted. You think they don't care. No, the secret sauce is the follow-up with people, because people are too busy. And then if I actually went above and beyond, if I started calling them and leaving them messages, that's even more like, wow, this person's even taking the time to reach out and call me, not just email me. So again, I could increase the rate in which I network with more people if I did that. Okay. So let's keep going. I'm going to see, should I do this now? Yeah, I'm going to do this now. All right. So this is my LinkedIn page. Okay. I want to share with you so that you can all see. I'm going to close out that chat. So this is my LinkedIn page. And what I wanted you to show you is all the messages are right here. These are all the different messages. So notice this is somebody I used to work with and stuff. This is the secret sauce right here, the in-mail message. So even though they chatted me here, if I go into my inbox right now, it will say you had an email, in-mail message from Ted, Bagley, right? So I could click on here. I could actually send a message, blah, blah, blah. But here's what I want to show with you, right? I have Sales Navigator, but you don't have to do this. But I've been applying to different jobs now that I left my other job. And here's what I do when I reach out to people. So the moment that I applied, I'm going to show you what I did right here. The moment I applied, this was on Thursday, I followed up. I said, here's my follow-up, VP of Sales. That was this position that I applied for. I said, hi, Kaylee, I hope you're well. I'm following up you so I don't get lost in the shuffle, right? Because a lot of people, don't get responded to. I applied for this position. I have a history of breaking sales records above quota in the higher education tech sector. Can I please schedule a screener interview? Thank you so much for your time and consideration. And guess what I did? I created a bit.ly link of my resume so that you could actually attach it here if you can see this. But I did this. If you're not familiar with bit.ly, you can go to bit.ly and you can actually create your own custom links, and so that you can just create a new one and do that. So then when people just click on it, it makes it easier for them, because I've had experience where I've attached a resume and someone says I couldn't open it. And then I put my calendar. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Because guess what? I have had experience applying to several jobs, no response. I get an email that says, thank you for your application. We'll look at you. We'll get back to you. Nothing. So this was a technique that I learned that you can do to reach out to people, and they take their time. They're super busy, but because people are still courteous, it works. So let me just show you guys real quickly. This is what you can do, because I actually had a paid version of LinkedIn. This was the position that I applied for, Hanover, right? So this is the company's page. They list their jobs right here. So, okay, I applied to one of these, okay. And guess what? You can actually find the people, right? So I would type in, I would like to know who is in talent acquisition, because that's the department that hires people, right? And I can see a couple of people and I can reach out to them, right? But because I have Sales Navigator, I have an even more extra depth to reaching out to these people. So that's why I would go view them. I would search them. I would find who that person is. Remember, I always try to see if I can find their email first, because I don't want to waste my email credits. But then that's when I say, hey, I just applied, I'm just following up with you. Can you please forward it to the appropriate person? And I have gotten interviews from different companies recently because I did this. If I had just depended on applying and thinking that they'll get to me when they get to me, no, it's worked. So I hope that tip is really helpful for all of you, especially to use LinkedIn, use the extra setting and be able to benefit from it. Okay, let's just wrap up real quickly with the final points to talk about public speaking, and then we'll be done. So give me 1 second. I have to share my screen again. Share screen. Here we go. Share. All right. So let's move on to public speaking. So who here will take 1 or 2 comments, can share what are some of your best practices when it comes to public speaking? Okay, Joy, I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
I usually ask my director, can I practice in front of her? And I practice in front of the mirror for myself, or I ask my daughter because she listens to my presentations.
Nice. All right. So you're asking people to, whether whoever it is, teacher, a family member and stuff like that, to practice. Okay, great, great. I love it. I love it. Any other best practices for public speaking? All right. If you have any, please post in the chat, but for the sake of time, I want to keep going. So I'm going to give you 6 tips for some people. Now, some people might be really good at public speaking and you don't need this. Others may be struggling with it. So again, you guys asked for this topic, so I thought I'd mention it. When I was starting out my speaking career and I had to do public speaking in front of an audience of 150, even 10,000 people when I gave my graduation speech, here's the secret that I did from my communications class and my own teaching throughout the last 2 decades. Number 1 is write out everything that you want to say, right? Like get your whole speech out, visualize you writing everything that you want to say, and then you can edit it and work on it. Once you have your perfect speech of what you want to share, right? And good public speaking is mainly about like stories and things like that, right? Then you have an outline and keywords, because the way we actually convey information, we need to chunk it down. It's too complicated to remember 150 sentences of a public speaking speech, but it's much easier to remember 20 key words or key topics of your presentation. So if I know that the first sentence is all about introduction and thank you, well, then guess what? That's what I'm going to do in my outline. Intro. Next sentence, thank you. You chunk it down into key words that represent that sentence or that paragraph or that idea, so that now you're training your mind to have a flow of these chunks of information so that when you share it, it comes out, right? And comes out clean. The next thing that I would do is I would get an index card, right? Because again, people do a lot of index cards. And so they're like, oh my goodness, and where am I? And I have to, no, have one index card, front and back. I don't care how tiny you need to write it as tiny as it can be, right? And so you write each keyword right on the left, and then you write the little sentences or abbreviated sentences. Why do you do that? The biggest thing and fear when you do public speaking is what? I'm going to forget what I say. I forgot my line. Well, if you have an index card, right? Or if it's just the outline, all you can do is hold it in your hand and you can just look at it for a quick second. Oh, yes, that's the point. And then continue. So this is your crutch. These are your floaties. If you're going into a pool and you can't swim, that's what this index card is. But again, if you follow the next 3 steps, right, you won't even need this index card. Okay. Beth, I'm seeing your tips. Write single sentences on an index card and practice, practice, practice. You took the words right out of my mouth. That's what it is. Step number 4 is, as Beth says, practice, 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 just like Joy said. But don't just do it like thinking it, do it out loud. Now, here's my suggestion to take it to the next level, right? Besides practicing out loud, if you're going to go into a conference room or wherever you're going to speak, try to arrive early before anybody gets there and actually take a visual presence of the room. Okay, that's what this looks like. This would look like. And then as people start coming into, and you have to give a speech or whatever, I would actually either, if they weren't there, I would practice out loud right there as if everybody in the audience was there, or I would get that visualization and I would go into the closet or the back room and I would close my eyes and I would pretend and visualize that I was talking to that whole room and I would do my whole speech. Then once you do that, you have all the information stored in short-term memory as well as long-term memory because you wrote the speech, right? Then you never have to worry about what do I need to say, how it's you practice it so many times that you're good to go. The last thing to take your public speaking to the next level, right? To me is your intention, right? Do a little meditation before you speak, right? You say, what do I want to intend with what I'm doing in my public speaking? And you ask your higher self, like that all the words that come out of your mouth, that it serves the audience, that it serves the highest good. And guess what happens? You're going to finish speeches and you're going to say, wow, that was good. Like, you're like, where did that come from? Well, it came from your higher self, right? It wasn't you speaking. It was like all the things that needed to share. And then when you've already memorized and practiced everything, that's when you can be extemporaneous. That's when you can actually be a little bit more witty. What if somebody makes a comment? Then you can joke with them. And now you're interacting live and engaging. And it almost seems like you're not even practicing a rehearsed speech. This is like just, what's your name? Tim Duffy. Is like, it's so natural for you that you have that all. And now you can engage with your audience. And those are the best, because then it's a miracle, right? We're being present. We're all in this together in this new experience that we never had before. So again, those are just some great practices. So in conclusion, in the post assessment that I'm going to post up right now in the chat, as I've sent you all in the email, members want more networking. So if you want more networking, I'm going to give you more networking. Okay. So in the post assessment, there's a question that says, would you like me to connect you with other members of Electa Society and share your contact information? So this is what I'm going to do. For everybody who says yes, okay, I'm going to send an email out in the next 48 hours, right? So I'm going to send out this recording tonight and send it to these people. And if you pick on the post assessment, yes, I want to share my information network, what I'm going to do is you're going to get an email, and you're going to have on one column is going to be all of your names that completed this training. And then another column of a different name of everybody who completed this training. So for example, it might be, let's just say Maddie and Joy. So we'll say, Maddie, you connect with Joy. Joy, you connect with Maddie this week, right? Here's everybody's contact information, email and phone. So I'm going to say, Maddie, Joy, you're responsible for reaching out to each other. I don't care who reaches out to her, she reaches out to you. Guess what? You do it, and you give 1 week to do it. And so what do you talk about? Learn all these practices that we just learned in this training. Do an intro, share about yourself, talk about a movie or book, why it's your favorite, what are your challenges in your life, what you learn from it, accomplishments, some of them might be the same thing, and how can I help support you? Is there anything I can do to help you support you personally and professionally? Anything you're struggling with? You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to work on my confidence. Oh, well, is there any books on confidence? Can you share any stories about how you overcame your issues with confidence? Now, remember, don't give advice, okay? Never say, you should do this. You know, want to know why? I got burned. I actually had people that I recommend. I'm like, you should see the chiropractor. You should go. And I give them the contact information. And guess what happened? That person, that chiropractor messed me up. Now I'm hurting. And it's like, wow, now they're blaming me for giving them that advice. And I'm like, listen, I don't tell you what to do. This chiropractor worked for me. It was very helpful. If you want it, I can get you that contact information. I leave it up to you. What would you like to do? People have to take responsibility for their life and stop blaming other people. And so it's just a good idea. No one wants to be given advice on what they should do. Instead, just share your own experiences. Hey, listen, sometimes people need to suffer in order to grow. So even though you could give everybody the best advice, they're not going to learn that way. They're going to have to fall. They're going to have to trip. But if you can just share your experiences, maybe, just maybe, they might hear something in your experience that might stick in there. And then when they go through that negative experience and they fail or whatever, it's like, oh, maybe that person was right. Maybe I should try something differently. So even if they don't take your advice, you know, or your experience, maybe it's something for the future. So I really appreciate all of you for actually joining in. I know we're out of time, so I'm going to do the post assessment in the chat right now. So let me copy this, control copy. Let me paste it in the chat for everybody. So you can click on that and we'll take any questions that anybody has. And if anybody got to go, they can go. Okay. Any questions about networking that I can help support each and every one of you? And if you don't have any questions, you can just say comments. Anything that you really got out of this training. Who'd like to share? Awkward silence.
I would.
Okay, who's I would?
Fatima.
Fatima, great to see you or hear you. I'm looking at your pictures, really awesome. Okay, what question or comments you have?
Well, I had comments. So I got a lot from this training, especially how to use LinkedIn. And while this training was going on and we were talking about LinkedIn, I went through my network and literally removed 20 people who I never even knew who they were. So definitely got a good information about LinkedIn out of it. And then, of course, the elevator pitch. I've always been struggling with that. In
Mhm.
English class, we've been talking about that for like, and it wasn't just English class, but a few other classes, and I just never knew what to say.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
like in interviews, when they were like, "Oh, tell us about yourself," I was like, I don't even know about myself. So yeah, I got so much out of this training.
Oh, that makes me really happy. Thanks so much, Fatima. And remember, this is just step one, right? So some of you already had a great elevator pitch, but the action steps for you to take is rewrite your stories, flush them out, make them better, right? If you already have an elevator pitch, make it more concrete. Maybe you have a LinkedIn page, but maybe now you can use it as an action step to actually update the profile. Maybe you can make it a little better. Maybe you can put more accomplishments on there or more strengths or skills that you have, whatever it is. Again, I could have gone a lot more into LinkedIn. I wish I did, but because I try to pack so much in here, but LinkedIn also has what skills do you have, right? And so you can choose, and that's really helpful when you have a premium subscription like I do. You don't have to have Sales Navigator. You could actually see for jobs that you apply, here are the 10 skills we need for this job application. And so you can make sure that you have all those 10 skills and it will say, check, check, check. And then guess what ends up happening is that you can, when you apply for that job, if your experience and your skills match, it will say you're a top applicant, right, for that job. And you'll be able to know, and the company will know that you're a top applicant. So many times, it's a very, very useful tool. And I'm glad that Fatima, that it benefited from you. I'll take one more final comment. Who wants to close us out? Any other questions or anything else that they really gained a lot of value from this training? Go ahead, Joy.
I actually like how Beth and Maddie explained more about different ways to like networking and like to practice more. And I like how you talk more about practice in like different situations to overcome a lot of like obstacles and just keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Who would ever go to a LinkedIn networking training and say, hey, everybody, why don't you write down all your life stories down? Why don't you practice them in front of the mirror, in front of other people, so that when you actually engage with people, they're like, wow, that Tim, he has some very interesting stories. Well, guess what? Secret. I wrote them all out. I typed them up. I practiced them out loud. You know what? That impresses people. It shows you're prepared, right? That goes back to the level of conscientiousness, the highest predictor of success. People who plan, prepare, and try to be perfect. We're not always perfect. We're imperfectly imperfect. Okay. Perfectly imperfect. All right. Thank you, everybody, for this training. I really appreciate all of you who showed up. I know that, there's a lot of level 3 members now. We have, I think, over 30 level 3 members. And there's also, I invited some level 1 and level 2 that still had a couple more trainings to go before the end of this training, so that they can join us at level 3, because I don't like to exclude anybody, but I want people to earn the right to go to all these other trainings and give some people some extra time. So use these 2 weeks to catch up with all the trainings that you're missing, because then after next training is starting your own business, we'll have 1 week break. And then guess what? I'm going to be talking about the stuff that I don't feel comfortable talking about on YouTube or whatever. It's the stuff that they don't teach you in the history books, right? We're going to be talking about how to raise your level of consciousness. We're going to be talking about some very interesting, mind-blowing topics. And again, this is only for audience, for people who have earned the right to go through all these trainings, who are committed to learn about this stuff. So again, it's just a kind of like filtering process where it's like, if you want to, play in the big leagues, you have to go through tryouts. So that's what all these trainings are about. So I appreciate all of you. Enjoy. Thank you for your comments. Please fill out the post assessment and I will read each and every one of them. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a good night.